Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Dylan Talks Tone. Welcome to the Just Gonna Say It podcast. Got some interesting questions and conversation that I want to have with you today surrounding the unseen costs of guitar making. I think it's kind of an interesting concept, and I'll tell you how I got to it. And it was just something I wanted to share with you. And kind of interesting stuff. Also, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and the like button if you like guitar stuff, because that's what we do just about every day of the week here on Dylan Talks Tone. And the other thing is, check the links down below. One thing I'm trying to do is keep letting everybody know about our other YouTube channel. So the youtube.com/Dylan and Leslie channel. It's down there. Some more off-topic stuff, some of the other stuff that, I'll talk about a knife in this guitar videos, and people don't like that because all they want to hear about is guitars. So all that other off-topic stuff is on a whole nother channel to kind of keep everything straight. So it's just sort of our where we put all that stuff. So got a bunch of new content coming out over there. We did get some requests for talking about our live stream setup and our recording setups and how we do this stuff. So I put that on that other channel as well, just so it doesn't mess around with the guitar stuff on this side. So thank you for hanging out and being with us today. I am glad that you are all here. It looks like we've got quite a few of you to come and hang out and talk about this. Yeah, so there you go. It's pretty cool. Like I said, check out the links in the description. Also, Dylan Talks Tone if you want to buy some pickups. I just saw a question here. Also, if you have guitar questions, put them in the chat with a bunch of question marks with it, or you can use a super chat and we will drop what we're doing and we will answer that question almost right away. Robert Hastings asks, do you think that there is value in factory tours? I read that the PRS Factory is open for tours again. They were closed during my last visit to Baltimore. I think I would like to take it. It's funny that you bring that up, Mr. Robert Hastings, because this is where this entire subject for today's podcast came up. I was watching YouTube and I was watching Lee Anderton take the PRS tour. Now, obviously, Lee Anderton would probably get a different tour than you or I would, right? Because he buys a lot of guitars from PRS, and so they probably show him around quite a bit. And I just got one of those slow drip coffee, iced coffee towers. Amazing. I love that thing. Anyway, so iced coffee today. And as I recommend that you watch that video. It is painful in the sense that it's 2 hours long. It doesn't need to be that long, I don't think. But the problem is that Lee Anderton talks over everybody the entire time, and it takes twice as long as it should. So except for that, try to get the value out of it for yourself. Don't worry about that part of it. And the other one I would recommend that you watch is the Gibson Custom Shop Tour. It's interesting once you start really looking at some of the stuff that that goes on in guitar making outside of, so let's just say, for a particular guitar, everybody puts them in, let's go with the big boxes first. So when I say boxes, I don't mean Best Buy box store. I don't mean that. I mean, let's put them in some category boxes. So we have, Chinese guitars, and then you have the Indonesian guitars. You also have the stuff that's made in Japan, the stuff that's made in Korea. Those are all varying levels of quality in our minds, right? And then we have the American stuff. And then we have custom shop stuff. So those are kind of big bins that everything goes in. And you could dive into each one of those and you could say, okay, well, there's this particular factory in China that's pretty good. There's this particular factory in Japan that's actually even better than the other ones, even though they're both pretty good. Or not both, but the few that I have experience with. There are, I think Fender, the last time I heard, used 24 different factories in Indonesia to make all of their stuff. That's not just guitars, it's amps and other stuff. But So there's a lot going on there, right? And then we kind of lump into categories. So let's say we've got the $299 to $599 guitar, and then we've got the $599 to $12 or $15.99 guitar, and then we've got anything above $1,500. For most people, they just go anything above $1,500, but usually it's 15 to about 3-ish, and then 3 to 6, right? And you kind of put them in these kind of tiers, and you just go, I'm never going to spend that much money for that guitar, or I'm going to save up for that guitar, or the guitar that I have is good enough for me, right? Like it doesn't matter. There's no wrong answer here. I'm just saying that's kind of what we do. And we put them into different categories. And we've talked a lot about how a lot of these different price points and the amount of effort that goes into these guitars is different for each of the price points. But for most people, that's very hard to imagine, because what typically people do when they're categorizing all these guitars and just kind of putting them wherever they put them in their minds is expensive guitars, cheap guitars, affordable guitars, however you want to put it in your head. It usually comes down to, well, this guitar does not have this feature, so I think it should be cheaper. This guitar is made out of this particular material, so I think it should be cheaper. This guitar costs this much, and this one compares to this one in a certain way, so it should be more or less. And usually people are saying less. They're just like, it's not, you know what I mean? So that's where the whole just as good as thing comes from, right? It's natural. We do that with everything. When you watch those factory tours, and this is not being critical of anybody. I mean, this is just kind of like human nature, right? That's like how we all are. We all do it with something, we all do it with, I don't personally do it with guitars, but I do it with other stuff. We all have something that we like kind of just put them in these various bins, and we don't think about what goes into it. So here I'm watching this PRS video the other night, right? And I'm watching, we're not even to the guitar making process yet. And we've got stacks of wood that have come in from all over the world. Okay. So first of all, the wood has to be purchased. The wood has to be shipped. Well, first of all, the wood has to be felled. Then it has to be milled. And I don't know if you know this or not, but a lot of the bigger guitar companies are actually more involved in the actual milling process. So they will buy it from a company that owns a mill or works with a mill to get the stuff milled down to particular size pieces of wood. Then that company will work with the guitar company. Then they will, to get it kind of in the ballpark of what they want, they will then ship it around the world. Okay. And then it will get to Stevensville, Maryland, Nashville, Tennessee, Corona, California, in particular, this time. And then when it gets there, even though it's been kiln dried, it's all at PRS, it's all retested and everything is cataloged. I don't know if you noticed in that video, if you've watched it, but every piece of wood has a number on it. So they know when it got there, how long it's been sitting there, how dry it is. And if it's not dried enough, then they've got these big oven rooms or drying rooms, but it's basically, it almost looks like a mini storage with like heat controls and humidity controls. And then that stuff's got to sit in there for a certain amount of time. Then it comes out, and then they mill it down to the next size. So down to the size for tops or the size for bodies. And then they have a group of employees who actually match for their core stuff. They actually take the tops and they say, okay, this one's pretty good for blue or green. So they put it in the blue. This is going to be used on blue or green guitars. Then they put this stack, maybe this one's a natural top. Maybe this one is a painted top. Maybe this one's whatever. And they go through and they individually do this. We've not even gotten to making guitars yet, but the infrastructure and the cost of just getting the wood to the factory floor is so high. I was just like, look at the labor and the infrastructure needed to manage all of that. Not only however much the guy's got to make to do the job. You know what I mean? And, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, well, factory labor in China, factory labor in Asia. That's how they do it. And living wage in the United States, blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. I do get it. I understand what you're saying. I understand what you mean there. The rate of dollars is neither here nor there. It's the amount of manpower that then turns into dollars that has to be employed to do that job. Less expensive products do not put that much thought into material selection and material management. They just don't. It's, they'll have a humidity controlled room. They'll take a block of wood and they'll throw it in the mill. That's very loose. I mean, obviously there's more to it than that, but it's just so interesting how much time and effort goes into just getting it to that part. So just getting the wood to the factory. The infrastructure needed to run those dehumidifying, drying rooms, the electricity that it takes to run that in the wintertime to keep those things at 105 degrees and, 25% humidity or whatever, till the wood comes down to 3 or 4%, whatever they said. It was ridiculous. All through the neck process, at each point when they stop between the stages of making the neck, they let the neck set, the parts of the neck and the parts of the bodies set for anywhere from a few hours to a couple of weeks in between stages to make sure that the wood stops moving. And you say, well, that doesn't cost anything. It's sitting there. The problem is it does, because flooring costs for anything in any business is money. You have to pay for the square footage. So if you're going to take up space in a building that you paid X amount of dollars for, you have to be able to say, I need to be able to make this much money per square foot because I'm paying this much money per square foot to remain profitable. So if you have a bunch of wood that's just sitting there doing nothing, you are paying to have that wood sit there and do nothing for 2 weeks while it dries. So that is an unseen cost in the manufacturing of that product. Also, the management of all those pieces of wood. One of the things that was interesting, I really liked in that video the breakdown between the S2 and the core models. And, they're both made in the United States, but there were definitely differences in manufacturing process. And what it was speed of manufacturing. One of the things they did was they talked about when they cut the neck blank and they cut at an angle in it and then they flip it around, and that's how you get your scarf jointed neck. But that piece of wood is now cut into 2 pieces, and the scarf joint piece is only about that long. Well, that is, piece A and piece B of a neck. Those pieces have to stay together because they go together through the whole process. They are all individually numbered, and somebody has to manage all of that stuff. So not even talking about the millions of dollars in equipment that needs to be bought to do all of this. Did you see the tube? I don't know if you guys watch this, but it's a tube driven electrostatic glue dryer. So they can take 2 tops, they put glue on it, take 2 tops, and they zap it with basically a microwave, more or less. It's not really, but kinda. It's RF from these huge vacuum tubes. And then it's dry. But you got to pay for that. All those things cost money. And so if you go to the Gibson shop tour, it was the same thing. There was just a lot of time taken in. Well, you just throw it in a CNC machine and it's done in 5 minutes. I don't know why it has to cost so much. That's just so unreasonable to think like that. And it was very interesting to me. I was just completely fascinated. I know. So, and many of you may not care about any of this stuff because you may not care about the manufacturing stuff, but I've been doing manufacturing and doing project management on the product side and behind the scenes all my life since I was very, very young. And so anytime I get to watch a process of how something is made, and literally I will totally nerd out about oh, wow. So that process takes this much square footage, and look at the man hours that it takes, and look at everything involved, all the behind the scenes things that we don't see. So here we are, guitar players on the other side, hitting Sweetwater link in the description. And we are like, I'm going to click order on my guitar. And in fact, I ordered one yesterday. I ordered my guitar yesterday. It's going to be here day after tomorrow, and it's done. And if I don't like it, or if I think it's cheap or whatever, then I can get on Facebook and whatever other forum or group you want to be and complain about how this guitar is not as good as some other guitar, or this guitar is just as good as some other guitar, because I just got to hit the button and the guitar got to show up, right? But when you really look at it, I don't know, it was just really exciting for me. Like, I would love to have that kind of tour, but not in that context. I want to know, like, yeah, how long does it take? And it was weeks for one guitar to get from one end of the factory to the other. It was weeks just for one, while it's waiting for various processes, various aging of the wood. I mean, drying of the wood, and settling of things, and then finish and all the stuff. It was just so fascinating. I wanted to share that because it's in a real positive way. Like, I'm not saying that you need to look at anything any different. You don't need to change your mind about anything. I'm not trying to change your mind about anything, but just take the time and check that out, because, and like I said, you got to put up with Lee Anderton, but, because I've seen him in other factory tours, and I just think he's really annoying in factory tours. He just talks over, he asks a question and then he like thinks he knows everything or something. I don't know. Anyway, so he kind of annoyed me, but yeah, it's just so interesting. It was really a fun thing to do, and it gave me a lot of confidence too in what I do, because, people will ask us all the time. I made a post on Facebook. It was just one of those chain things from a long time ago, and I changed all the words about, like, the guy that goes to the mechanic and he's like, how much is this going to cost? And he's like, it's going to cost $400. He's like, well, that's too expensive. It really should only be $200. He's like, well, you could do it yourself. Well, I don't have the tools. Well, I don't know how to do it. Well, that's what you're paying for. It's a lot longer than that, but that you get what I'm saying. And it was really cool. It was just a really cool thing to think about. And it makes me feel good about what we're doing here, because we get people ask us all the time, why are your pickups expensive when these ones are cheaper? And I'm like, well, there's a couple of reasons. One is because that guy doesn't have the infrastructure of a business. He's not going to be solvent in 2 years. I've been doing this for 10, and I'm going to do it for the rest of my life. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it costs money to make money. I mean, it just does. And so that was a really cool thing to see that kind of more. And I know that most people are going to watch that video and they're just going to be like, okay, whatever, it's a factory shop tour. But for my mind, it made me really be able to identify with where my money is going. Honestly, it made me want to buy a PRS. I mean, I have two of them, but like a regular, I don't consider even the American PRSs that I have, I don't consider them regular ones. I mean, like a CE24 or a McCarty or something, like a regular PRS, like what you would think of when you buy a PRS. It made me want to buy one because I was just like, wow, they really do. Okay. And yeah, I'm going to say it. Paul Reed Smith does bark up the whole, marketing tree with all of his terms and, totally cork sniffed inductance pickups and all that, whatever. He does do that stuff. That's just a big gimmick, whatever. But he does, in that whole process, not just him, the entire organization is very passionate about making a very good instrument. And I was just like, I understand why they cost what they cost now. And it's not costs that you might see. It's not because this guitar costs this much more because it's got these tuners on it, or because it's, in comparison to another guitar. Well, if you compare this guitar to a Gibson, or you compare this guitar to a Fender, or you can't compare them. They are not comparable like a commodity is comparable, right? They just aren't. There's too many differences. Okay, so taking this to the next level, a Fender being at $2,000, a Gibson being at $3,000, and a PRS being at $4,000 or $5,000, depending on what you get. There are reasons why those guitars cost what they cost and why they're different. That's why you can't compare cost-wise a Telecaster to a Les Paul. You can't compare that. It's just you can do it all you want, and you can argue about it on the internet and all that kind of stuff, whatever you want to do. But you can't it's not reasonable. Let me just say that. You can do whatever you want. It's not reasonable to do that though, because the manufacturing processes, the entire design ethos of a Fender guitar versus a Gibson guitar versus a PRS guitar are so different. And the approach that they take to the instruments are so different on an elemental level before they even cut the tree down, that by the time it gets to the guitar, as much as we just want to say Ford, Chevy, Toyota, Dodge, like we do a pickup truck, you can't do that with a Telecaster or a Stratocaster, or you shouldn't, with a Telecaster or a Stratocaster and a Les Paul and a PRS core. It just doesn't make sense to do that because the design ethos is so much different. It would literally be like comparing a regular F-150 to a Cybertruck. Okay, it carries some stuff. There are 4 wheels and you can put people in it. But beyond that, there's nothing to compare. You can't really compare a gas F-150 to a Cybertruck. It doesn't make sense to compare that. So they're each their own animals, which is so interesting too, when you start to look at it from that perspective and then just go, do I want this thing or not? Right? Anyway, it was a really cool conversation. It was a really cool conversation to watch. I really enjoyed it a lot. Oh, let's see. How are you doing? I'm good. I'm really good. Let me see if there's any questions in here. Yeah, all the companies catalog all that wood. What I'm telling you is it takes time and money to do that. And that's one of those things that you don't see in the final product. When inventory control here, when I get an order that comes in, so I got an order that's going to come in tonight, and it's going to be like a pretty big order. Like I only order a couple times a month now. And it'll take me an hour to properly put everything up and count everything and know what I've got. Well, how many pickups can I wind in an hour? Well, I could probably wind, let's see, just wind, not complete. I could probably wind 8, probably like 8 P90s, I guess, in an hour, maybe more. I don't know. I haven't thought about that. I could do 8 times. Yeah, something like that in an hour. And what do they sell for on the website? $109.95 a piece. So I have to stop what I'm doing, making money, to go count bobbins and put them up. That is a cost. If there's 8 hours in the day and I can only do so much, and I got to spend part of the time putting up bobbins that came in the mail, that's a cost that has to be, put into everything that we're doing here. And I just don't think people think about it like that. It's a dumb thing to think about. It's a boring thing to think about, right? Like it's the stuff that's not cool. Sitting at the winder, watching the Haas CNC machine go, watching them do the setup on the guitar, or even paint the guitar or sand the guitar, right? Like those are the cool things because you want to see the guitar built and you want to see it. You know what I mean? Same thing with the pickup stuff. Like if you want to watch a video of me winding a pickup, which I think is the most boring thing in the world because it's the most boring part to me, but that's what everybody wants to see because you're actually winding the pickup or assembling a humbucker. But there are so many other hours in the day spent doing other things than just that. Sitting here magnetizing magnets for, if I think we made, I don't know how many P90s we made last month, but it was a lot. Times 2 magnets for each one. Got to sit there and magnetize them all, So just those unseen costs are so neat to think about. And it makes me more, I think it just makes me more understanding of stuff. Like if I get a guitar and there's in the mail and there's something about it that either isn't right or there's something about it that I didn't expect or I don't know. I just feel like it's really cool to think about that. Let's see if there's any questions. In other news, this tooth that I had a root canal on, I just broke it about 10 minutes before we came here. So that really sucks. So I've got to go back there tomorrow. Consistency cost time. Yeah, it's let's see, Rusty Shackelford, for me to make a humbucker would cost probably $50 in parts and supplies, and it would sound terrible. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm not saying it would sound terrible. But you're right. That's the kind of thing that, I'd already had half a root canal done on it, so I don't feel it, but it's annoying. And I can just feel all the crap came out of the top. So now I just have a hole in my tooth. I go in tomorrow at 8 a.m. and they'll fix it. I ain't stressing about it. It doesn't hurt, so. Yeah, I just think it's neat. And, a lot of times I will make comparisons to like pocket knives and stuff. And people will be like, well, it doesn't count because guitars. And I'm like, no, guitars are just things that are made by people. They're just things that are made by people. We try to assign some religious reverence to them. And for many people, they are that important. And if they are that important to you, that's fine. But they are just a thing that is made by a person. And it costs a particular amount of money to do that thing and to bring that product into existence. And the value in any product is what you personally get out of it. The people that say, for example, that a bolt-on neck should never be as expensive as a set neck. That's stupid. It's just plain stupid. I don't know if you know this or not, but it's easier to set a neck than it is to make a bolt-on. It is. Because you can set a bolt-on neck. So, like, you could take a Strat and you could glue the neck on. Just glue it on. No bolts, no plates, no drilling holes, no nothing. Smear some glue in there, glue it on. It'll stay on. It will not come off. You got to cut it so that it fits properly. But just glue it on. And so the guitar it's not harder. There's no more work that goes into it. It's not a higher quality instrument, for example, between a bolt-on neck and a glue-on neck. You could actually, if you raced somebody, glue a neck on faster than you could bolt a neck on. If you took the same exact bodies and said, okay, I'm gonna bolt this neck on like a regular Strat, and I'm gonna take this one and I'm gonna glue it on. This guy would smear glue, slap the neck in there, clamp it, and he's done. This guy got to go over the drill press, drill the holes all the way through. Then he's got to get the neck. Then he's got to pre-drill the holes in the neck. Then he's got to put the screws through. He's got to put the plate on and then bolt the neck on. That other guy's already having a beer. So it's not faster or slower or, when you're jigged up to do one thing or the other, it makes a difference. But I'm just saying that those sorts of things, those are dumb arguments. Whatever, I think instead of comparing things all the time, it's better to just decide what you like and do you like it. And then whatever design ethos you go with is what you go with. And you decide if you like that guitar or not. End of story. If you don't like it, don't buy it. If you can't afford it and you want it, save up for it. If you, and if you don't want something nice, don't tell other people that they shouldn't have something nice. I like something nice, and I know you do too. Deep down. That's why you're talking so angry on the internet. Because you like living with a sense of, yeah. It seems like bolt-on manufacturing would be more modular. Well, it's not. I mean, it is because you can take it back off, but putting it on is the same, even a Gibson Les Paul with a long tenon, it's not a long process. Yes, you have to have it jigged up properly, and yes, it has to be set right and everything. But when you glue it, when you watch them at the factory, they glue it, they stick it in, they clamp it. It's done. That's it. There are far more processes for a bolt-on neck given a similar body design. Now, you could get really, really out of control with your neck tenon and all kind of crazy stuff that people think you need because tone and because, totally resonant, bro. Like, the harder I glue it on, man, like this is glued on so hard. It's like glued on way harder. It's way more resonant. Okay, whatever. If the neck don't come off the guitar, it's fine. It's fine. Like, I don't know. Those are the kind of things where people go away. And we're getting way off topic here with that. But, if you just decide, and I guess I would say this too. I'm not one of these people who's like, I'm only a set neck person. I'm only a bolt-on neck person. I'm only a busy, I want one of everything. You know what I mean? Like, if we're going to do this, why don't we do it? Like, if we're going to enjoy guitars, why don't we just enjoy guitars? So I want one of everything. So I would rather be interested in the design ethos of a particular brand than compare it to another one. Right? So instead of saying, well, I'm not going to buy one of those because it's not this other thing, my brain is like, oh, I don't have one of those yet. And that is different in this way, this way, and this way, and this way. And now I want to go experience that. I just have a little different. My mind's different about that stuff. And you can be however you want about it. I'm not saying you shouldn't. You obviously be yourself. But I like to have these conversations because I think a lot of people get kind of pigeonholed into one thing. Like this is the only good thing. And it just isn't, because people focus way too much on the wrong things. And, it's kind of fun. It makes it way more fun. What is the average profit made on a guitar for the known brands out there? Well, I can give you. So here's something that I think you might want to think about. When it comes to having a company with employees and all the stuff, okay? There are some companies there are some industries that have marginally more profit than others. But when it comes to the scale of Gibson, Fender, PRS, those kinds of things, even me, I'm not that big. We all look at the same metrics. So typically 60% of your street price is your wholesale cost. So if you have a $100 product, then you need to be able to sell it to your wholesaler for $60 so that they can make 36 to 40% on it, so that they can stay in business. So what I mean by that is, if you're a mom and pop shop, you're probably not going to take my product on in your store for less than 36 cents on the dollar, probably closer to 40 for somebody like, pretty much most everybody. Most everybody I know, and I've spoken to a lot of guitar retailers, and small ones and big ones, 40% is pretty close. And in my other businesses, all the business I've ever been in have always been 40%. So figure if it's $100, then you have to make it for $60. Then internally into the company, that means that you need to actually have real costs of goods at about $60. And this is just spitballing here, but this is the kind of stuff my brain does. Divided by 4. It means you need to have about $15 or so in parts to make a $100 product. Now, it doesn't include labor. That doesn't include the infrastructure. That doesn't include anything. So and your profit for your business. So all of your costs, all of your everything. So $1,000 guitar needs to be, $150 to $200 in parts in order for that to basically work out. I know that it's more like 300 is what they're at, really. But that's not a flat scale, and that number is not always correct, because you also have to mess around with labor versus parts. So if you take a let's see. No, this tooth is really bugging me. There's like little pieces coming out. It's just part of the filling that is coming out. If you take the labor cost part of this. So for example, if you put binding on a guitar that doesn't have binding, those parts don't just jump on that guitar by themselves. That is a complete other process. We talked about flooring space at the factory. We talked about manpower. We talked about all that kind of stuff. And you say, well, they already bind this other guitar. Well, that also means that you have to now reschedule. You have to do one of two things. So if we're going to put binding on a telly, let's not use that. Okay, well, let's use PRS. So, well, not PRS. What Gibson product? Okay, well, let's just say this. So let's say that they were going to come out with a Les Paul Studio and they were going to put binding on it. Okay. Well, they already bind Les Pauls, right? But they are running at capacity binding Les Pauls. So you've got however many guys, 4 or 5 guys over there binding Les Pauls all day, right? So now we're going to do Les Paul Studios and we're going to bind Les Paul Studios. Well, you would just think, well, there's no big deal. They already have it, but they don't, because the volume of the Les Paul Studio is going to be higher than the regular Les Paul because the guitar is cheaper. So therefore, not only are they going to have to come up with a whole nother infrastructure, probably 4 or 6 more guys to do the job for just that, have the flooring space and all the place to put everything to be able to do it. So now you got to spend that money to set all that stuff up. And then you have to think about the added labor and the cycle time disruption of that particular model. So now that particular model that took, however many hours from start to finish. Now we have to add 3 more hours per guitar or whatever it is. I'm just pulling numbers out of the air. So now that guitar, you're like, well, they added binding. I should pay $10 more for it. No, you're probably going to pay like $400 more for it. 300, probably $300 more for binding. Maybe not that much, but depending on the guitar, depending on the model, and depending on where it is in the price point. Here's the other thing. The cheaper the guitar is, the bigger the jumps every time they make a change. Because every jump is a larger percentage of the cost of the guitar. So if parts cost on a $500 guitar go up $10, then you're going to be paying $549 or $559 for that guitar now. That's a big jump for a $500 guitar. But for a $3,000 guitar that is now then $3,149 or $3,049, it's not as big of a jump mentally for the customer. But when you do that with a less expensive guitar, it makes sense that this is why everybody's like, Mexican Fenders are so expensive now. They are, but it's only because incremental changes that have to be made to bring the costs up because of all the things that we're dealing with now are felt more on budget instruments than they are on expensive instruments. And to be fair, they are also felt more by the buyers of budget instruments than they are felt by non-budget, higher end instruments, just because those people typically have more expendable income. So it's not necessarily, it's not like I hear this, I see it all the time, and I hear it all the time about people like, they're just out, like the guitar industry is not out to get you, right? They're not out to take your money. They're providing a product, and they're trying to provide a product that you love, right? Like that I love. We love this stuff. That's why we're here. And they're not, it's just another money grab. Well, duh. Like if you want to make money, you come up with something cool and people buy it. Usually those are the little niche-y products. For example, the Peter Green Epiphone Les Paul. That's just another money grab by Gibson to whatever. Well, of course it is. They're not going to make a guitar that doesn't sell on purpose. Then we have the Firebird thing, remember, that they ran over with the tractors? Like you don't want that. Nobody wants that. We don't want that, right? So it's not a money grab. It's something they know will sell. And honestly, I'm just going to say it. Here's my just going to say it moment for the week. But guitar players, we are all like this. I'm not just saying you, I'm saying me too. But we are all like this, where we feel we have some kind of ego that says, well, I went to I saw this the other day on my website. I went to the website the other day, and it looks like this company is so expensive, they're going to be out of business because I know nobody's going to want this product. Go bark up a different tree. Because, that company's been in business, the one they were telling me about, it's been in business for 10 years. They're doing just fine. And 8 billion people on the planet Earth is a lot of people. And there is a customer for everybody. And there's an ass for every seat. That's what we used to say in the dirt bike business, right? Like make the product and find the person to buy it. And I think that's something too, from the guitar player's standpoint, we don't think about. So I'm giving you all this business stuff from the other side, but this is where my brain lives all day. This is what I do. We look at it from the guitar player's side, and we're like, they're not making a product that I want, right? Like all they're doing, Fender's just coming out with another pickguard color. Gibson I didn't want that. I don't want that. Somebody does. Somebody does want that. Not you, but somebody does. And a lot of people do. Otherwise, they wouldn't make it. And the other thing is, where it's really fun, where I have the most fun, is when I come out with a product. So I'll give you a good example. We're working on pickup covers right now that are Cerakoted, and the possibilities for color are super cool. This is like a denim blue, and this is like a cement gray. The possibilities are really, really cool. Now, it's costing me some money to get it set up. It's costing me some money to get into it, and I'm gonna have to do, I'm gonna have to spend a lot of money at a time to make it profitable, and it's a thing. Is everybody gonna want a burnt bronze humbucker cover? No, but I'm really passionate about this. I think it's very cool, and nobody's ever seen it before. So if I'm gonna come up with a product, it's not your job to buy a thing that I make. It's my job to find the person that wants the thing that I make. That's how I look at the world. I don't look at it as you need to buy the thing because I made it. I need to come up to you and say, are you the kind of person that would buy the thing that I make? And if you say no, I'm not offended. I say, okay, no problem. I need to go find the person that's going to buy the thing that I make. And Gibson, especially lately, has been very, very good at that. Their products that they're coming out with now are things that people want because they are focusing their marketing correctly. And you might think, because you personally are not interested in a particular product, that I am wrong. But the facts are, you try to go order anything that came out last week and it's sold out. They're selling the stuff out as fast as they can make it, which means that there is somebody out. They've found somebody to buy the thing that they're making. We say all of this to say, don't compare stuff. Don't worry about any of that. Buy the thing you want. Just buy the thing you want and enjoy it. And tell me about it. If you bought a $200 guitar, tell me about it. I want to know about it. Because in the end, if everybody buys what they want, not what the internet told them, not what I told you, not what you watched in a review, not what you said was, this is just as good as this other thing, but the thing that you want. If you bought the guitar that you wanted, the thing that you wanted, and you told me about it, I would be happy for you. And you would be happy for me when I bought a Les Paul, because I like Les Pauls and I'd let you play it and it would be cool. And then we'd all be stoked, right? Like, so I think in going all the way back to the beginning of our conversation today, this whole thing about this tour, go watch it, because it's going to give you a bit of appreciation for just all the things that go into all this stuff, that it makes it fun. I mean, I watched that and I have been feeling great. Literally, it like boosted me to feel great about working. Leslie asked me today, she's like, how you doing this morning? Like, cause this is like our Monday coming back from a holiday, we were sitting there talking this morning, cause we get up every morning and we have coffee together every morning, no matter what, from like 7 to 7:30. And, she's like, how you doing today? Like, how you feeling? And I'm like, I'm actually doing awesome. I'm like, cause the context she asked me that question is, we've had these holidays, right? And you've had all this time off and now you have to go back to work. And I'm like, I'm kind of stoked. Like, I'm kind of stoked because what we're doing is cool. We've got a bunch of cool stuff going. Business is good. People are buying stuff. We're making stuff that people like. I even said that. And I'm just excited to get back in the groove after being off and just stay caught up and come up with cool stuff and do cool stuff. I'm just excited about it. And that video was part of that, because I was like, no, I am doing the right thing here. Breaking down why this guitar is not expensive and why this guitar is expensive. And, people in the comments a lot will get super negative about it, and it will kind of bum me out. Like, and, because people get very angry about, whatever their opinion is. And I'm like, no, I'm going to swap around how I do this. I'm going to show you why I appreciate stuff. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to agree with me at all. You can say this guitar is not worth it. Totally fine. I don't care. Doesn't bother me at all. Does not affect my feelings whatsoever. And I respect whatever you say about it. But my concept is I'm going to show you why I think you can find value in these things. And I'm not selling anybody for anything. I'm not selling anything for anybody. I'm just saying, I think you can find value in it, and it will make you a happier person if you're not grumbling in comment sections about why it's not. Try it. You guys, this has been fun. Thanks for hanging out. Let me make sure I didn't miss any super chats. And we are going to get going. I hear my daughter just showed up, and she has my parts order that just came in. So I got to go take care of that we were just discussing. And I got to be somewhere. So thanks for hanging out, everybody. This has been super cool. We will see you on Thursday night.